Here with Jim Camarata from Keller Williams in Minnesota. Hello, Jim.
Hello, Jennifer. How are you today?
Great. I'm glad you could be with us today. And we're going to talk about don't go to realtor jail.
Stay out of realtor jail.
Maybe it's the best place to be,
Well, depends. But in winter here in Minnesota, realtor jail is not heated. So,
Oh no. Well, what are we gonna this is a series every Wednesday where we discuss professional standards committee violations, code of ethics violations and cases. What are we talking about today?
well, wanted to take a little bit of a different twist today. NAR has revised the citation policy on anonymous complaints. Now,
Okay.
this is Article 12 only, which has to do with advertising and marketing. Article 12 says realtors shall be honest and truthful in their real estate communications and shall present a true picture in their advertising, marketing, and other representations. So that's 12.
Okay.
What the change allows is for anyone, member of the public, other realtors, to file an anonymous, well, that's a tough one to say so early in the morning, an anonymous complaint against that realtor.
What was it before?
They had it, but it really wasn't being promoted. So now they've revised it, they've streamlined it, and it's out there. So it's out there for each local board to either accept and adopt it or not. So Minnesota has, and I got trained on this earlier this month.
So meaning that, well, if anybody can report false advertising, basically,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So let's say that I'm advertising that all my services are free.
Oh, Jim, why'd you open up that DOJ can of worms?
Well, that's one of the areas that somebody can file a complaint because that's that's a no-no, and there's a
Okay.
fairly hefty fine. So, if I'm pulling up the or advertising a property for sale or lease without the authority of the owner. Ooh, that's a
Well,
good one. That's $1,000 fine through the new citation schedule. That's
okay.
hefty. So,
I mean, you can't. Okay, so you can't really advertise a property for sale or for lease if they don't allow.
oh, some people have tried.
But that's fraud.
Well, it's fraud, or people think, oh, well, I'm just helping them out. Well, if you don't have written authority, you're breaking the law.
What are some of the other, like, what are the most common violations of Article 12 that you've seen where this would, like, where now the fine schedule is more serious?
Failing to disclose the status as a real estate professional in advertising and other representations. So there
Okay.
was a whole big thing with social media where you had to identify yourself as a licensee. And if you don't, your first offense is a $750 fine.
And that's higher than it was before the
Mhm.
revision.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
So they're really trying to crack down on various offenses.
So
So,
let's talk about, so when you're advertising, the main points I imagine are one, yes, that you're a real estate agent. Two, that your brokerage and your name are generally, like, each state is different, but at least the same size, or
mhm.
they have different regulations per state, but it's at least the same size, right?
Yeah, yeah. And what makes this kind of unique now is that there's a six-step process for an anonymous complaint. So the first one is somebody can, file the complaint with the local association. There's a grievance review panel. Step number two is a grievance review panel that looks at it and says, is this really a violation or not?
Mhm.
And then they'll say, "All right, we agree this is a violation," and they will notify the licensee.
How do
Licensee,
you, uh-huh, sorry.
okay, no, I'm just the citation is issued, and the respondent has 20 days to respond. Now, here's where you got to watch your timing. 20 days. If I do not respond within that 20-day window, I
Mhm.
get slapped with these automatic citation
Okay.
because it says the message is I agree.
I did it.
Guilty, I did it. I'll pay the fine, whatever it is.
So it's really they revised it, it sounds like, because there's a lot, maybe there's more advertising violations than there has been in the past, and they're trying to like encourage people to tattle.
Yeah. Well, to
Look,
call
if I
to
need to know
qualify.
my accuser. Don't just tattle on me and I don't get to know who did it or what they said.
Well, no, this is where it gets even more interesting because if I'm being accused, if I respond within that 20-day time period, I can say, no, I want a hearing.
Okay.
Now, if I request a hearing, I now have a right to have the person that's accusing me be present.
So you could request the hearing, then you find out who it is, and then you could be
Yep.
like, I did it, I'll pay the fine.
Yep.
Okay,
Or
that's what I
if
would
I'm
do.
found in violation, if I'm found in violation,
Do you have to go
then
through with I thought you didn't have to go through with the hearing.
nope. If I say I want a hearing,
Mhm.
I did not do anything wrong. I want a hearing. Now, the person that complained has a decision to make. They either agree to being identified or they withdraw the complaint.
Okay.
So it still remains totally anonymous.
But as if the person that is accused of it says, I want a hearing, do they have to show up? You're required to show up.
It's you're not really required, but if you don't show up, then your complaint is it's going to fall by the wayside because it says that
Yeah, you just pay your fine.
well, maybe not even then. If they
Well, it
don't
depends on
show,
what they find.
yeah, the panel may say it couldn't have been too serious. We're not going to hear it, or they will hear it. That's up to the
I
individual
gotcha.
hearing
Well, this
panel.
is look,
So,
I
so
don't know. I feel like if you have, I see if it's like a blatant violation of advertising, it's misleading. Like, yes, that makes sense, right? Like, I would even just like call the agent and be like, "Yo, like, you gotta, this isn't right or whatever." Like, it's misleading
mhm, yeah,
before tattling, and then if they keep doing it right, then the tattling makes sense.
yeah, yeah.
But I also think like we have more things to do than just look and see what everybody else is doing.
I agree, but there are some agents, and years ago, I even said, "Don't you have anything better to do with your time?"
Exactly. Exactly.
But there are other violations, such as using a designation, saying that you're a GRI or a SRES or some other designation when you don't have it. That's another automatic fine of $750.
That's the same, basically almost as much as advertising somebody's house for lease without them knowing. Oh my God.
Well,
What are the other ones?
oh my gosh, registering or using a deceptive URL. Well, that's a
Okay.
real no-no. Directing them to a different website. Ooh.
Okay.
Um, Failure to disclose the firm name and the state of licensure on a website.
That I can see
You
that
can't
gets
just
violated a
website.
lot.
Yeah, so there are just so many violations or just not being truthful in what the house
Well, and it
offers.
can be hard too, like if you're changing brokerages.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. But that's why if you are going to change a broker's affiliation, just make sure that you've planned it out well because there's a lot of stuff
There's a lot.
that, yeah, I mean, you've got business cards, letterheads, websites,
Everything.
signage. It
Yeah.
just goes on and on and
It's
on.
a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, Jim, if people have a referral for you in Minnesota or they have a question about these new revised rules, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
sure. Call me or text me at 612-562-7461 or email me, Jim Camarata at kw.com. I love referrals.
Awesome.